Joining you and I now is Jason Isaac. He's the CEO of the American Energy Institute. And Jason Isaac, welcome again to the Bill Cunningham Show. So first of all, this weekend, explain the National Day of Protest. What is the topic this weekend?
Well, it's a great, because we finally have theater arts majors that can get jobs now. They get paid to be protest and act crazy at these protests, but it's opposing America's critical digital infrastructure, which we have exposed the American Energy Institute. It's the same organizations that really hate any infrastructure in America, whether it's oil and gas or now critical digital infrastructure. It's groups like Greenpeace and Sierra Club and Indivisible. They've been receiving millions of dollars of foreign funding, and ironically, they're using data centers through Facebook to organize these protests, which I just find laughable. But they've been manipulated by incredible foreign-funded marketing campaigns to scare people about energy use and water use, something that you and I do on a daily basis. We use energy, we use water. Maybe that's the end-all, be-all here, is to get rid of people like you and I because they think there's too many of us on the planet. And they don't want to see the advances that we're getting from artificial intelligence, whether it's advances in agriculture by using less herbicides and pesticides, or route optimization in transportation and using less fuel. I mean, these must be the grandkids or great-grandkids of switchboard operators that lost their jobs years ago because they were replaced with technology that they made things more efficient. I don't understand it, but it's kind of weird. You've got people on the left and the right that are opposing this, and I want to remind the people on the right about private property rights and advancements in technology and how important it is that America wins this AI race, and how important it is that we add more infrastructure to our country.
All right, let's talk about, for those who may not know it, and I have some knowledge of data centers just from doing what I do, but nonetheless, what is a data center? What does it seek to do, and why do we need it? Let's go to the basics. What are they? What do they seek to do, and why do we need them?
Well, the reason we need data centers, and this is interesting, when I was in the legislature about 13 years ago, I was the chairman of a subcommittee from Economic and Development on small business, and we started meeting with small businesses, construction companies, HVAC, plumbing, welding, and we were also talking about how do we attract these data centers. We know that companies need storage, whether it's the photos that we're taking on our phone, our financial records, other advancements in technology. They need to be stored somewhere. And so we started attracting data centers to Texas and offering not incentives, but a predictable regulatory climate, low taxes, good places to live, good places to raise a family, affordable housing and living. And they came and they built. And in Texas, we have over 330 of them alive and well, and another couple of hundred proposed. And this year alone, those data centers, that critical digital infrastructure in Texas will contribute over $1 billion in local taxes to our public schools. That's reducing the burden of other homeowners and other small businesses. And so they're essentially subsidizing public education and not sending any kids to the schools to be a burden. So you would think the left would love that. Hey, we found a way to increase funding for public education. But no, they're not. They're opposed to it. And it's really because they require more energy, which we have in this country. We need to update our grid. In Texas, our infrastructure, over half of our thermal generation that works really well is over 30 years old. So we need new investment in it. And what better way to have it? It comes from another company rather than ratepayers and taxpayers.
Who owns the data centers? I'm thinking about Google, and I'm thinking about Facebook, and I'm thinking about Apple. I'm thinking about, Safari, all the big ones. Who owns the data centers?
Yeah, and it is those big companies that have all signed President Trump's ratepayer protection pledge that are building the majority of the data centers or contracting with companies to build them. And believe me, someone who's on the right, I've had my issues with big tech in the past, and I still do. They're building these data centers. They're building on-site electric generation. But one thing they're doing that is going to distort the market a little bit is they're still continuing power purchase agreements for so-called renewable energy. Or they're buying renewable energy credits, which is forcing renewable energy onto the grid. The biggest concern, though, is they've just abandoned their fiduciary duty. If you're buying and building on-site electric generation, you don't need to be paying for power somewhere else, but they do so they can virtue signal that they're meeting their European net zero goals. But that's going to force unreliable electricity on the grid that you and I are ultimately going to pay for. So they're signing this pledge on one hand that says they're going to protect ratepayers, And then on the other hand, they're doing things that are going to be questionable in the future and could lead to higher cost of electricity. So it is that big tech that's building them. Had a little bit of concerns about that, but overall, they're, I would say, a positive thing on the communities and where they're going.
Well, here in Ohio, there's a big Senate race between Senator John Husted and Sherrod Brown, who's an acolyte, of course, of the radical left. He was Bernie Sanders' guy. Sherrod Brown was in office like 40 years. And the big issue in Ohio is data centers. And people instinctively oppose them, no matter where you put them, not in my backyard. And Governor Mike DeWine has put a moratorium on more data centers. Unlike maybe Texas, Ohio has much more water than we ever could use. I can't tell you how many billions of gallons of water flow by Cincinnati every day, called the Ohio River. We have the Great Miami, the Little Miami. We've got Lake Erie. We got water all over the place. And so water's not the issue. And so when a meeting is held with data centers in small communities in Cincinnati, like Wilmington or Batavia, hordes of people come out, generally of the older character with multicolored hair and rings in their nose, to oppose a data center in the middle of nowhere. I can see opposing it in your neighborhood, not in my backyard. But Ohio has millions of acres of vacant land all over the place that would be perfect for these data centers, but they're opposed automatically, just 70%. And so I guess I have a concern that in Ohio, if that race goes the wrong way and Sherrod Brown, the Democratic Socialist, goes back into the Senate, there goes any hope of data centers. So economically, I'm told that these large data centers, and there's many in Ohio right now already, construction jobs are $5,000 to $6,000. Those are middle-class jobs. And then to keep the data centers moving, there's hundreds of jobs every time these data centers are being employed and put up to keep middle-class Americans working. And so what do you say to someone living in Batavia, Ohio, or maybe in Dubuque, Iowa, that a data center is good for electrical rates and good for jobs? Deal with electrical rates and deal with jobs. People are angry about their utility bills. In Ohio, for example, they've gone up something like 60% in the past 3 years. Why is it good for utility rates, and why is it good for jobs?
Yeah, it's good for utility rates because they're going to be building new infrastructure. They're not going to be a strain on it. A report has just come out in the last 24 hours showing that it's more blue state policies. The overinvestment, I call it wasting money in unreliable sources of electric generation to meet European politicized decarbonization goals, implementing wind and solar on the grids, which are intermittent sources that have to be backed up with natural gas and coal. And so now you've made natural gas and coal intermittent. It's like driving your car in traffic. It's inefficient. You want to get it on cruise control and go 55, 65 miles an hour and keep it running all day long at that speed. That's the most efficient thing. So they've made our existing power plants that work when we need them inefficient. Those are parasites on the grid. And so now what's going to happen is data centers are going to come in. They're finally recognizing this. And believe me, it was these big tech companies that pushed a lot of this unreliable electricity on us. Now they're realizing that that doesn't power a data center, that they need natural gas, they need coal, and they need nuclear. And I have members of our trade organization that are providing the power to oil and gas companies in the oil field and now signing agreements with data centers as critical digital infrastructure to power it. And in 7 to 10 years, when small modular reactors are available, they're going to switch out the natural gas and replace it with nuclear. It's going to provide constant electricity. So you're going to have newer infrastructure that's providing electricity that will be available onto the grid to put electricity back to ratepayers and reduce their cost. You look here in North Texas in the Panhandle, this very dry area. There's one example of a data center coming in and said, we're going to use brackish water, this heavily salinated, dirty water, if you will. It's nothing that you and I are going to drink. They're going to take that and they're going to desalinate. They're going to build a desalination plant up in the Panhandle and provide water for 3 counties. So it's more than what they're going to need. And believe me, we need incredible investment in infrastructure, whether it's electricity or water. And these companies are doing it and providing water to other ratepayers. So this is just an incredible benefit here. Other communities are upgrading infrastructure with the investments. I mentioned the $1 billion that they fund in public education in Texas. So there's other communities around the country that are going to benefit from this. And when you have states like New York that put a moratorium on them for a year, that just means they're going to go to other states that accept them. And this is not about policy. This is about education. And the public is being misled. They're being manipulated. and need to understand some of the benefits. And if there are drawbacks, it's likely there's already laws on the books, as there are for any industry. You have to get air quality permits, water permits, construction permits. You have to have setbacks. There's impervious cover requirements. I mean, there's so many regulations that are on the books. That's why, unfortunately, it's hard to build things in this country. But what we're seeing is the reindustrialization of America. We're seeing a massive increase in efficiency. And look at the jobs in electrical work, HVAC, plumbing. I mean, it was reported that there are 500,000 electricians needed. That's why some of these companies are investing in trade schools. Your kids are going to graduate high school. They're going to have a certificate in some of these skilled workers. They're going to have less time in post high school work, maybe 2 years to get a complete certifications and a license. You're going to go out and they're going to make $80,000 the first year. It's going to be insane how many people are buying boats and motorcycles. At age 20, they're going to have their first homes before they turn 25.
Great.
Because they're in these great paying careers powered by data centers, really more critical infrastructure.
Jason Isaac, we need independent, objective evaluations. The American energy grid is 30 to 40 years old. It's going to collapse. I would also point out the radical left, who are the ones this weekend is going to be protesting God knows what. They're against nuclear because of 3 Mile Island, TMI, I guess. They don't want nuclear. They don't want power plants fired up by coal. Coal is evil. Nuclear power plants are evil. They don't want any pipelines. You might recall that Joe Biden got rid of pipelines all over the country. They don't want natural gas because that could be explosive. They don't want data centers. They want windmills and they want solar batteries. And that's going to power the energy of the future. In 10 years, America's energy needs will be 80% greater than they are today. In 10 years. Now, the present utilities that we have cannot even get close to providing that energy, which means a guarantee of American lack of productivity. And the companies that are doing this thing are putting to work millions of middle-class Americans, and this is opposed by communist Red China and by the Gulf states. They don't want this. But the radical left is using the well-intended but misled viewpoints of middle-class Americans who think data centers are evil to stop advancement. And if that happens, and if the Senate turns completely to Bernie Sanders and the House turns toward Hakeem Jeffries, and I guess in 28, if Kamala Harris is likely Democratic nominee again, if she wins, explain what happens in 28 when Kamala Harris and Sherrod Brown and Hakeem Jeffries are in charge of America's energy productions. What happens to this great country?
Well, it continues to move to Florida and Texas and other red states like Tennessee that are embracing federalism. They have low taxes, low regulatory climate that are going to continue to produce the energy that we need. Look, Florida doesn't produce any oil and gas. They've embraced the natural gas infrastructure, the natural gas renaissance, and put in the infrastructure to move it around their state. And their residential electricity rates are actually lower than they are in Texas, the number one gas producer in the world. And so that's what would happen. And blue states would continue to see the cost skyrocket. They would continue to manipulate the federal government to hand out money to those blue states, as we've seen with the fraud and the waste abuse that's been exposed over the last 2 years. So that's what you would see with the blue administration. Demonize energy, force companies to report silly things like greenhouse gas emissions that do absolutely nothing to mitigate a changing climate. They just make everything more expensive. And as you alluded to, that's what they're about. They're about control. They're about degrowth. They don't want to see growth in the United States. They've been manipulated by the Chinese Communist Party. And so that's what, unfortunately, you would see if the Senate flips blue, if the federal government flips to Kamala Harris, any other Democrat. They're going to bend the knee to these climate alarmists, drive up the cost of energy. You're going to see the California cost of gasoline all over the U.S. They probably switched to the metric system so they could say they reduced the cost of the pump because, there's almost nearly 4 liters in a gallon. They would say, oh, look, the cost went down to the pump, but you get a fourth of the gas.
Despite, we have a minute remaining, all that stuff happening with gasoline, I filled up the other day at a local UDF, and it was $3.29 a gallon. And on the same fill-up that I had in California, it'd be $6.29 a gallon, almost 100% more for the same product. Lastly, we have about a minute remaining. Explain these as small nukes that are coming. And what are they, and how will they change the energy production in this country when we have thousands of small nuclear power stations? Explain that.
Yeah, and we have thousands of them in place right now. Today, they're in our military vessels. Our Navy has been using them in submarines and other warships to provide power to that ship so it can stay out on the water for 9 months and not have to refuel. So now that the technology is advancing where we can do that, it's basically the size of a shipping container that you can put on the back of a truck. You can make a small modular reactor and get a significant amount of electricity and provide that electricity continuously. It's the smallest, densest, most form of electricity on the planet is nuclear energy. It's got that lowest footprint. That's what we need more of. It's affordable, it's reliable, and finally the regulations are getting out of the way. Big bets on nuclear companies like Oklo. But what else is Oklo doing? Not only are they building small modular reactors for electric generation, they're about to reach criticality in a facility here in Texas. And criticality is an important term. It means that it can repeat itself. So it's sustainable, and then they can start manufacturing. They're going to produce medical isotopes, which are used in the treatment of cancer. We're importing them from foreign sources now. They actually essentially wipe out the cancer cell and not the healthy cells. It's an incredible reduction of cancer. This is one of the things that I'm most excited about is nuclear. If you're against AI and data centers, you're against curing cancer because those technologies are making the cures possible and the nuclear power possible to create these medical isotopes to cure and end cancer once and for all.
Jason Isaac, CEO of the American Energy Institute. We must proceed into a better future. Once again, thanks for coming on the Bill Cunningham Show. And Jason, you're a great American. Thank you very much.
Great to be on. Thanks for having me. Keep living a high carbon lifestyle.
God bless America. Let's get